Welcome back to Dista Digital. We talk about today's video games and the classics that inspire them. I'm Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton, and today we're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, developed by Guerrilla Games.
Yep. And be sure to stay tuned for our save point today where we talk about your comments and answer your questions, all here on Dista Digital. So, Matt, I recently just beat Horizon Zero Dawn, and might I say, it's a fantastic game. I'm genuinely surprised on how good it was. I've heard a lot of people talk about it for years about how great it is and how the story's fantastic and the world and the environment and all that. It's a great open world experience. But never experiencing it myself. It wasn't because of lack of PlayStation. It's just I never really got around to it. And beating it a couple days ago, it is truly like a marvel, I would say, as far as games are designed, as far as the story goes. Do you remember really anything? Because you beat it a while back. Do you remember the story vaguely at all? Or
So yeah, I remember quite a bit of it. Kind of did a little bit of a refresher before recording here today, but for the most part, I've beaten the game twice in about two equal 40-hour playthroughs. So about 80 hours of story gameplay and side questing and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty fresh for me. I remember quite a bit of it.
Yeah. The what I really liked about it was that, so for those of you who don't know, I don't want to spoil the game too much, but there are these robots in the world that, are just wild animals. It's almost like robotic dinosaurs. And you go around trying to figure out who your mother and your father were because you are like an exile in your clan. Aloy is like an exiled part of the Nora clan. She's been exiled from them by birth, and she has been raised by another exiled Nora named Rost. And he raises her because she wants to get answers for who she is. And he says the only way you can do that is if you prove yourself at like the proving and become one of the Braves, I believe it's called. And he trains her to do that, and she's very excited to do that. Well, in her early years, she discovers a thing called the Focus, which is like the Bluetooth Nokia headsets of today, and it tells her everything. Like, it surveys the world, it tells her objective map stuff like that. It's pretty much like a heads-up display for her that no one else really has. And technology's kind of in this time period. It's sort of a future prehistoric times, sort of like like early Mesopotamia sort of style game, just with technology like used in weird ways. So like everything's metal, like metal really wasn't around back around that time too commonly, to the point where like your houses, everything's made out of metal. Like it was used for like weapons and stuff like that, but rarely did you see like shields, spears, bow and arrows, metal tipped freaking bow and arrows all the time. So really just this abundance of technology and like robotic tech has been used in almost prehistoric ways. And you kind of discover why that is as you continue through the game. But more or less, what really makes it was, I think, the characters. I mean, I absolutely loved it. And eventually I'll get deeper into the lore of the game as we progress on here. But to put it straightforward, it is prehistoric hunting with dinosaurs, that are made out of robots, like robot dinosaurs. I mean, that's all you really need to say to get interested and get hooked, personally. But I mean, for you, what was your experience with the story? What did you like about it, or what did you appreciate about it?
So funny enough, it was actually the last game I actually really like followed hardcore before its release. So I didn't know what to expect, as far as like a deeper story mechanic, which the lore in the game, we won't go into detail because we don't want to spoil, but there is quite a bit of it. And I guess we can share some things, but the premise of the game, when you first play it without really knowing too much, is that it's a post-apocalyptic type feel to the game. It's kind of like set in a cross between like a prehistoric time, but with modern technology. And so it's such an original take on a post-apocalyptic setting as well. And it's just this fantastic world of, like you said, instead of like in older times when man first discovered certain things, and like in early settlements, wood was a natural resource used for building homes and starting fires, and it was a natural resource that was commonly used, and it is commonly used today, but I think in today's world it's kind of long forgotten. And so inside this world, everything is metal and everything is like scrap. So everyone
Mhm.
kind of grows up through this time period and is raised, and these clans are formed, and humanity kind of bounces back, but in a new way. And there's such a unique take on the story that you really don't know going into it, but you find out later. And so going into it, you just think that, well, mankind is this is like an alternate universe, but in reality, this is after mankind has gone extinct
Mhm.
and been fortunate and lucky enough to been able to reboot themselves, and humanity has kind of like tried to conquer the planet back from this whole machine race, so to speak. And so
Yeah.
it's this fantastic like um, machine hunting, which represents animals and prehistoric dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So it's perfect what you said with dinosaur hunting, and it's just such this unique experience. It's kind of hard to fit it all into one podcast, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as the lore by itself, we could sit here and talk for hours about like the in-depth world as is, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things that's so great about it is that the way that it tells its story, which I really liked, was it didn't tell you the story. You discovered it on your own through dialogue, and it was like very Mass Effecty in the way that you had multiple choices of dialogue that really don't affect terribly much. I felt like Mass Effect, you had like either good or bad, and Horizon Zero Dawn is very similar, where it's like at the end of the day, you either accept this quest or you don't, and then all the other stuff you ask, no, however offensive it is, doesn't really matter as long as you either accept the quest or you don't accept the quest at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
So dialogue there, you learned a lot about the world just through talking to people, um, which I liked. I'd rather that than have like a billion like log entries that I have to read for them to explain me the story. They did also a really nice thing, and I wish they did more of it, was audio logs. So when you scan with Aloy in her focus, there's like tablets and stuff like that from the old world that have information from previous lives, or like a little side thing that you might just be interested in, and like information about the world. Well, when some of them give you the option to listen to it while exploring, I think that was genius. It gives me all the audio, it gives me all the information in a way that it does not hinder me from exploring or looking for something else in the
Mm-hmm.
objective. It's additional storytelling through exposition there, but at least the way that it's done there, it doesn't take me away from the gameplay. It takes me out of the experience in order to read something. And they had quite a big chunk of them. And then you have a couple where it's like you have to read it, and those are the ones that I actually ended up missing out on because uh, there's a couple of them that talk about like how mankind was doomed, and there's a couple of them where they talk about like, was it on purpose, was it not on purpose, was it like actually like someone trying to like you know um, compromise this mission to save the world, and
Mm-hmm.
those are all in written ones. And I wish there were an audio logs, because firstly, the emotion that you get from like an actor delivering it is much more intense than me reading it in a menu on really small font. It's that for me was something they did very well, was they had moments like that where they can tell you the story really well through showing you it in the world versus here's a paragraph and a half on this person. The Witcher kind of did something like that with like the logs, where it like tells you everybody's information in like that journal, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I never read any of that stuff. And I think for me that's kind of where the lore's a little lost on me. Is it's not that I don't like to read, it's just in a video game, I'm there to be in the experience. I'm not taking my time to read the book. There's a reason I'm playing the video game version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Personally. What about you? What for you stood out as far as compared to something like Assassin's Creed? What set it apart from that style of game? Because there's very many open world experiences, but I think that Horizon Zero Dawn has a niche that nothing else has really touched. Just story aside.
Yeah. Well, so it's when earlier when I said about the unique post-apocalyptic adventure, it's a unique take where it has been done before, but definitely not in the exact same formula. And
Yeah.
I think what sets it apart in the open world is the ever progressing end game. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have this idea of what's happening, and the game during the story quests and everything kind of lets you know, hey, you kind of always a reminder what you're working towards. You want to stop the end of the extinct full on extinction of this, I guess, a second extinction of mankind. And
Yeah.
so you have this drive and determination to, just from a story aspect, to push
Mm.
through so that you can ultimately save the world and
Mhm.
stop this from happening. And the game does a beautiful job with the audio logs, does a beautiful job with the 3D logs that take
Oh, yep.
place, where you actually can discover, there's some key points early on where there's, when you're starting off the game fresh as a young Aloy girl, and there's some pretty emotional audio logs, and there's a really emotional, like a representation, I think, of a birthday party going on, and they show you
Mm.
that in a 3D filter, like the Matrix sort of feel
Mhm.
to it. And you really feel for that human. You don't necessarily know what they look like, you don't know what they sound like too much, and you just kind of have this glimpse of like a birthday party that's now long past, but that has never been able to happen since. And so it ties you in emotionally as well.
Mhm.
So what this game does is, it doesn't throw you a million different side quests and different things to do. It throws you a bunch of obstacles in your path. So it throws you a lot of new varied enemy types and
Mhm.
new areas to explore, but it puts a lot of obstacles between you and your main objective.
Mhm.
And I think that what sets the open world part of it apart is that these creatures, these mechanical dinosaurs, have very unique biomes and very unique territories that they protect.
Mhm.
And if you look into the backstory a little bit, one little sneak peek I'll give is that these machines are being controlled ultimately by one. And so what's going on is that they are being told to protect, they're being told to attack, they're being told to self preserve,
Mhm.
and they are defending themselves at all costs. And so that uniqueness to it of, you don't know what's around the next corner. Sometimes you can be stealthily sneaking through the environment. All of a sudden, a storm bird's going to come flying in
Mhm.
and go after you. Or, you know, you go a little too far over the cliff and you tumble down and you get stepped on by the Tyrannosaur machine. And
Yeah.
that was a fun encounter for me. I'll share that a little bit later. But
Mm.
what sets it apart is the uniqueness of the enemies, where they're not necessary. There are human enemies in the game.
Mm.
There's rival clans, and there's an ultimate like evil clan that may have something to do tied in with the story of why this has happened. However, the majority of the combat and the enemy types is from just machines. So you really don't feel anything for them, any anger towards
Mm.
them, or any like angst against them. You just feel like they're just in your way,
Mm.
and the game gives you so many incentives to take them down, to craft things from them that they drop. And the funny thing about it is they usually don't drop the same thing twice. So
Yep.
each different character drops a unique item, but that doesn't mean the next time you see the same character he's going to drop the exact same thing. And so I think the variety in the game, both in combat, exploration, and story, makes it that much more of a unique experience. That this is such a unique take on this, I don't think anybody else can come close.
Yeah, I almost forgot about the fact that they don't drop the same thing every time, which was something that I kind of thought was really cool because when you go into your log, I just talked about how much I didn't like looking at the logs, but I looked at the logs for resources, and it would show me like let's say a watcher or something like that is the name of
Mm-hmm.
like this little chicken looking thing that like jumps on you with one eye. It tells you what the possibilities for each item that it drops are, uh, and it like goes based on like rarity and like what they're used for, and it tells you like is this tradable, is this for resourcing, because eventually you're gonna have a bunch of stuff in your inventory that you don't know what to do with, and you're thinking, well, why would I need 500 things of wood for crafting when I don't really craft that much. The nice thing about that is that that ties into what you're saying is where they feel like they're just in your way. You don't necessarily have to kill everything. You can run away from it. You can override them and control them for yourself. But sometimes you run into something and you're like, oh, this has what I need in order to craft a bigger pouch for whatever. I kind of have to take it out. Well, by doing that, you might have triggered the rest of the community of android robot thingies to attack you. So, for instance, there's like these like turtle cargo thing. There's like a giant turtle looking thing with like this hexagonal prism on its back, and if you attack it, it has a bunch of resources inside of it. But because of that, it's being escorted by, I don't know, like it's mafia protection of robots. It's, I don't know how that dynamic works. Like I don't know how predators are protecting like the crippled turtle. I don't know how that works in like
Hmm.
the biosphere of reality, but in the game it does. And so like they attack you immediately, and those guys are hard to kill off. And that was something that I really liked about it, was that, you know, if I attack one style of robot, doesn't necessarily mean that every robot near me is going to attack me. It could be that this robot and this robot don't like each other and they're going to attack, you know, or they all gang up on me and then I'm SOL. But one of the things that I also really liked about that style of, you know, open world experience with this unique take on enemy types is the enemies were truly unique. It's not like reskins of like human people. Like this robot's really good at jumping, or uh this feral robot's really good at flying, but like it has an immunity to fire, or something like that. And there's weaknesses for each robot that I really like, that it shows and displays it to you on your focus, but that's not necessarily the best way to take it down. You know, like it might be weak to something, but there might be a completely different method that you never thought about that is super efficient in taking down like a flying animal or something like that, or a charging beast. You know, there's so many options in the game, which was another thing that I really liked about the story. They never tell you any of this. They didn't say that x plus y equals z. They just said here's z, and you figure out your own way to solve the problem, which I think is something that ties greatly to the story. The story isn't, the main story is linear, but it branches off in a way that it never feels like, oh, here's my main quest. I'm 20% of the way through it. Now I do this side quest and I feel like I haven't gotten anywhere. You feel like that world is growing and that world is lively. And those side quests feel meaningful, minus a couple of fetch quests that I had to deal with. But that's common in almost every single game. But they were very minor overall. You know, go here, go there, sort of missions. But the story overall, even on the side stuff, was sound, and it made me feel accomplished in doing so. But I think I think you're right. There is something truly unique about how it doesn't like cheap out on anything. Like it does everything so well. And that was something that I was very surprised about. And that kind of takes us into the next topic. As far as gameplay goes, like what did you really feel about the gameplay, as far as what did you know right away that you were going to love it? Cuz I didn't necessarily love it right away, but I want to hear your take on it.
So I just kind of went into it on the right off the bat on launch. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it right off the bat. The health system was very straightforward. You're picking herbs to kind of like a certain amount of them in your pouch, and then when you are fully health, like you have full health, and it takes a lot of herbs sometimes to get to full health, and it's like this constant thing you can go to, but you have to replenish. I think
Mhm.
they did it smart, because a lot of games you'll find that stuff in the environment off of enemy types, and in this game you had to find that in the wild on your own. And
Mhm.
not every biome and not every geographical location has herbs. They're scattered. Now there are an abundance of them,
Mhm.
but that right off the bat was a great mechanic that I enjoyed, just being able to run up and snatch it. Um, the other thing I liked about the game was the progression of combat as you advance and you get better. Um,
Mhm.
it's your basic bow and arrow game with melee combat involved, and the melee combat's so simplistic. It's just a strike that you do to inevitably finish off the enemy if they get in close quarters. And so for me though, I found like I was getting more experience out of the game, and more, I think it was more XP, or I was getting, there's something at the game where you get like an extra piece of material from them if you finish them with like a melee kill. And so
Oh.
the combat for me was really smooth, and the gameplay was really smooth. I think traversing the environment was not like the greatest in certain parts, but I think that it was very fine tuned enough where
Oh.
the animations were just like wonderful. And I think overall it could have used it could have had a few improvements. Like you could have been climbing a little bit better.
Yeah,
It
you
could have
could have
been a little bit.
grappled. That was actually, now that you bring that up, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
if they would have had a grapple mechanic, like where I could actually mantle over something,
Yeah.
I would have been fine with that. But there's so many times where she's just jumping against a cliff that's like up to her like waist and she can't get over it. And I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, and I mean like
Yeah.
the if you look at the bows, you look at the different variation. You got the sharpshooter bow, which is more for like long range, and you've got like a combat bow where it's
Mhm.
like kind of like all around good for close range, good for long range, and you got ones that like fire multiple arrows, one that fires faster. You
Mhm.
got like a trip caster weapon. I love the weaponry because my favorite thing in the game was to use the tripcaster to defend yourself on especially the saber tooths. That is the
Okay.
one enemy in the game that early on just devastates you because there's a section where you have to go through and the saber tooth is camouflaged against the walls,
Mhm.
and so you're kind of sneaking through. And you, if you don't use the little Nokia thing, I
Mhm.
forget what it's called in the game.
Focus.
The focus. If you don't
Yeah.
use your focus device to scan, you can't see them, and so they're breathing, and you don't know where they are. And they turns out they're like standing and like almost like spider crawling and like holding against the surface, and then they jump down and attack you on sight. And it's actually the saber tooths that defended the turtle creature thing you
Oh,
were
okay.
talking about.
Yeah.
Those are a pain in the butt, but I think the enemy types and just everything was just so varied. The combat, I love, like I was saying about the tripcaster. So I would use that as a line of defense when they would come at me. But
Mhm.
if you paid attention to the enemy types, if you scan them ahead of time, they all have different weaknesses, like an aversion to fire, or that they have a weakness for electricity or
Mhm.
shock damage and whatever. So being able to kind of like plan out your level of attack and being able to change out your weaponry based on what you needed. There's like a slingshot where it shoots like an explosive um, bombs or whatever. And I think overall the weapon types, the varied amount, it's almost like you had an arsenal, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if you knew what went well together, I mean, you could just clear out an entire high level enemy section no problem if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I think another thing too that sets it apart, going back to what we were talking about before, just to close that out, is that the the difficulty of combat could sneak upon you in a heartbeat. It's not a game like Dark Souls that's supposed to punish you, but there's certain sections that you don't know what you're walking into, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you get stepped on by something that's way higher level. And then maybe the game actually reloaded for me in that, and then the enemy wasn't there, and so it
Mhm.
was kind of unique. Like it like randomized where the location would be off into another direction, and it wasn't there the next time I came through. So it's kind of really interesting that they just kind of have this algorithm where they have the animals, characters, machines spawn just out of nowhere, and then when they're gone, when you reload, they're gone again. So I think that variety speaks to in their coding. I know with some games they have that ability where everything's kind of random and it's not procedural. I really like that about the game too.
Mhm. Yeah. I think what was really cool about, in particular, you're talking about like Sabretooth and you had the trip caster. The fact that, like, for instance, your way of taking down the Sabretooth is completely different than what mine was, and it's not that a method is worse or better. It's that, it caters to the playstyle and the player choice. Where, like, you might set up a line of defense, you wait for them to trip over it, and then you hit them while they're down. For me, I was kind of a more aggressive style with the trip caster. I was really into tethering. So I would use a tether and I would tether them to each other. And that way, if they tried to separate, they would be bound to each other. And then I could pin down one. And since that one's dead, that one's still tethered to the other robot. And that gives me time to sit back with my precision bow and knock off the parts that I want. Because there was a strip. I think it's like I think it's called strip, where you hit off certain parts of the robot and it does massive damage, and then you can get that component for your own inventory. And I eventually just got a bow that I maxed it out in stripping ability because I wanted to have really high crit and I wanted to make sure I could get the parts that I wanted in order to build better armor. And
Mm-hmm.
so by tethering it slowed them down just enough that I could, hit a critical spot, or if they got tethered, they would like go on their hind legs and I would slide underneath them and shoot them underneath and do massive damage. Where you could trip them and you would accomplish the same exact thing, probably use less resources than I did because when they fall, they also lose some components. So, I mean, there's just multiple ways that you can take down one enemy. Their weakness, what I like about it is that the weakness is, yes, something that you need to know, but it's not something you need to use at the same time. But I think that was something very cool with the game as well when it came down to combat. It just gave you so many options. And also the fact that you're right, like they didn't spawn in the same time or the same place every single time, but they had on the map they had like little icons where like
Hmm.
this is prime territory for like a saber tooth to live, or this is a prime territory for this sort of thing to live. I liked that because I knew for a fact that, oh, if I'm going over this territory, I don't know how to defeat these crocodile things yet, like
Hmm.
efficiently, besides staying away from them. So, or let's say I needed a mount and I needed something to ride through this like long desert area. I know, oh, hey, these are likely to spawn over here because of the environment. They like the environment over here. I can grab a horse mount thing, whatever it's called, mount, and ride it over there, and get to that place faster. One thing I will say that I did really like about it was the fact that in order to survey areas, you have to climb a giant dinosaur. Way better than
Hmm.
climbing a building in Assassin's Creed. I
Absolutely.
I love that. One of my favorites was there's one. Did you do all of them or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's the one that's stuck in the ice and you have to put the components into it in order to get it
Hmm.
back up and running. And then you have to climb it. Like you have to go run off a cliff and try to jump onto it. I
Hmm.
thought that was super cool. I kind of wish that I could have just stayed on top of it instead of having to go find a place to jump off of, but it's whatever. Game. It's fine.
I
I'll
actually had
overlook
that
that.
happen too.
Yeah.
My first memorable experience with that with the tower. Keep in mind, it's like a walking giraffe.
Yep.
This one that I came into contact with, and so the first one, it's in an area where it's kind of like feels like it's Boston-y kind of area, but it's post-apocalyptic, so you still see some remnants of the previous buildings, and you
Yep.
have to actually go into one and root around in it and find your way up to
Oh
the
yeah.
top, and you have to wait till this giraffe thing walks around. It comes back down the block, and you have to time it. If you miss the pinpoint timing by 1 millisecond, you're gonna miss the jump.
Yeah, and you
And
die.
so, yeah, and so you have to jump off the top of this skyscraper to hit the neck of the giraffe, and then grab on and climb the rest of the way up, and then activate its thingy. I forgot what it's called. And then it basically opens
Yeah.
up that section of the map for you. Definitely a very extremely creative and unique take on the typical Assassin's Creed thing where you have to climb to the peak, and you have
Eagle
to
vision.
teeter off of a peak to do recon in an area, which is kind of funny in itself. But yeah,
And then you jump off of.
definitely some memorable moments for sure.
Yeah. The one thing I do like is that instead of jumping into like a thing of hay, you would in Assassin's Creed, you like rappel off of it, which
Mm-hmm.
is really cool. There's a couple of cool things like that where they just took the extra time to let's be realistic with this. Okay, we'll give her a grappling hook. She'll jump off of it and not swan dive to her death. She'll like be smart and grapple her way down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things like that where I really liked it. Uh, as far as the the combat and other things go, they were skill points. They handed them out like hotcakes,
Mm-hmm.
which was fantastic because it allowed me to, make the kind of build that I wanted. And I wasn't limited by having to get like 20 skill points at like the last level. It's actually four, I think, for no, three for the last two levels of unlocks. So if you think about it, that's like six levels right there that just unlocked the last two in a certain skill tree. But they handed them out really, really nicely, and it allowed you to like build the class that you want, get to where you wanted in proficiency rather quickly, and have an overall pretty seamless experience. I think as far as like the RPG side of it. The other thing I liked was crafting. Crafting was in not in real time, but it was like slow down, like a slow mo cam. But you were able to craft instantly without going to a menu, without going into a clunky inventory menu, and by doing that, it allowed for experimentation in the game. So, like, let's say I used my tripcaster and I missed. Well, my tripcaster sucks, so I only get 3 shots with my tripcaster. Well, now I can craft it and try it again,
Mm-hmm.
or I can use my tether, and let's say something else jumps me. Well, I just spent all my tethers on that one guy. Now I can recraft my tethers, and then I can proceed with the fight. I love that. I love the fact that if you went into a fight unprepared and you had all the resources, you could craft and rebuild up your inventory rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for me, I ended up only using probably 2 bows in that entire game. I stopped using the tripcaster after it failed me one too many times because I'd get the first one out and I couldn't ever get the second one out in time before the thing would just like destroy me. And so I was just like, okay, forget it. We're not using the tripcaster no more. So that thing just sat. I I never leveled it up. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
tripcaster fans out there, but that's just not. It was a no go. It was a no go for me. Um, but I really did like that as far as a gameplay mechanic was that the experimentation was not punishing. Like you could try whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
Uh, and they wanted that. They wanted you to try out different options, try different combinations, different modifications on your armor sets, on
Mm-hmm.
your bows. That I liked a lot. I really did like that aspect of it, where it was really quick. I could change it up on the go. Uh, and then the one thing I think I saw was that you could have different charms on different armor sets, uh, which was nice. I wish you could quickly change like bows and armor sets. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe something for the second game, but
Mm-hmm. For
because then
sure.
that way, like I could have a bow that specializes in like Sabretooth or a bow that specializes in like Watchers.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, most of the time they never touched me because I was too good.
I mean, I was actually surprised that they had that many outfits in the game to
Yep.
begin with. Now, for me personally, the DLC one that you get on launch day is the best outfit to me, the coolest looking outfit in the game.
Which
But
one's
it
that?
happens to be low level, and so later on in the game you get much cooler armor as it goes along. But for me, I was my plan of attack was stick with the DLC weapons. They weren't overly powered. They were just
Mhm.
it was just cosmetics at the end of the day. And so
Yeah.
my kind of combat thing went. I'd make sure I had the tripcaster, and I would lay traps,
Mhm.
and I would scout out an area, and then it'll have the enemies coming at me. And then if I was found out, I would have two lines of defense, two rows of defense coming before they could reach me. And
Mhm.
so when you had some of the enemies in the game that would charge at you really fast, that really helped kind of stop them, especially if you had the electrified tripcaster,
Yep.
because obviously with machines, you use the electricity against them, it's gonna fry them and kind of make them stun them. So it's kind of like a stun grenade, I guess,
Yeah.
in typical shooters. And
Yeah. What
so
was
for
that?
that, for me, that's what made it fun. Now, I have two takeaways from combat that made it fantastic for me. One of them is the fact that when you're roaming in the map and you come across an enemy, they will leave their territory and come after you
Mhm.
and fight you to the death until they chase you down. Now, a lot of games you can cheese when you leave an area and the enemies stop following you, but not this game. And also with the characters, so I got into a confrontation with I forget what the T-Rex character is called, but it's like a T-Rex machine. And so I'm fighting this thing and I'm like low level. So I'm like, what am I gonna do to stop this thing? Tripcasters don't even tickle it and stop it.
Mhm.
My pouch bombs aren't doing anything. I'm not making a dent. Um, so I break away and I'm like, okay, tuck my tail between my legs. I'm taking off. I'm running.
Mhm.
Well, I go down a ravine and into an area where it's a new territory. Well, I had just now discovered that there's these enormous like crocodiles, and so the T Rex thing follows me down. He goes down and around and comes down, and he gets into a confrontation, and these two things start going at it and fighting. And
Mhm.
I'm like saved by the bell because the alligator thing actually took down the T
Oh,
Rex
really? Dang.
and destroyed him for me. And luckily, the alligator, I was able to sit from afar on like the edge of the cliff and just keep popping him because he couldn't come up the cliffside.
Mhm.
So like he was stuck. So I kind of I guess you could say cheesed it, but
Yeah.
it was amazing that a game does that where the enemies actually start fighting each other too. So and that kind of goes against the game in a way if you think about it, because they're all being commanded by one entity machine
Mhm.
or an AI, and so it's like they're supposed to preserve each other, but yet they still do have confrontations and attack each other. And that to me is actually really cool, because if you think about that in the wild, it's the same thing happens, you know.
Mhm. Exactly.
So that's a unique takeaway for me for that for sure.
Yeah, I think that one of the even though they're all controlled by the one entity, I mean, like you still have like the corrupted ones that are like even eviler, you know?
Oh, those are a pain in the
Yeah,
butt.
those ones are a pain. I hated those. But that DLC skin, I was trying to ask you, what DLC skin are you talking about? Because I had the DLC, and maybe I just never used it, but I don't know what DLC skin you're referring to.
Did you have the day one edition?
I had the complete edition, so I don't know if you got a day one skin or not.
Hmm.
I don't
Because
know.
the day one, so it was like a Nighthawk like helmet that came with it, and it
What?
was like unique. It had its own unique take, and she had like warrior face paint across her face.
Yeah, I saw that. In order to do that, I had to get New Game Plus. I'm actually trying to pull it up right now,
Okay.
because I want to see this cool skin. Oh, I actually kind of see it, the skull one. Yeah, I don't have the skull, unfortunately. I actually played with the headdress off. I don't know what it was. I didn't like having
Same.
all that extra stuff in her
Hmm.
hair. Um, that was just me personally. I ended up using the Nora like heavy soldier or whatever it was. The forget what it is. See, people, you gotta realize I don't read all this stuff. I just look at the stats. So, uh, but I liked it. It looked cool. It looked very similar to the original skin. You know, the Nora Brave one. So I was like, yeah, let's keep it. Let's do it. You know, let's stay true to Horizon Zero Dawn sort of like cover art. I like looking like the cover character personally. So,
Hmm.
but other than that, I mean, the plethora of weapons, the variety in combat, the way that they told the story, the game overall is fantastic. You know, the the one thing that I have a hard time when I like tell people about it is it's the game that you have to experience, you know. And that's the one downside to it. Like there's JRPGs and there's like games that have great stories and you can explain it to somebody, but this is truly a game I feel where you have to experience it in order to get that emotional attachment to understand like the later second half of the story, like
Hmm.
when you we'll talk about it after the save point. Um, but that experience you can't have just by listening to what the story's about. It's not
Yeah.
it's not the same in my personal opinion. But do you have anything left to say before we get into the save point?
Oh, no, man. I think we're good. Let's head on over.
All right, cool. Matt, would you like to read this week's comment? It's a long one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll see if I do a little bit better reading the long ones than you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens here.
Don't want to trip you up. It's actually a small text too, so I gotta kind of
Yeah,
squint a little
I was
bit.
looking at that. I'm like, why do you do like a size 9 font on
let
this
me
thing?
let me on the fly make it a bigger font.
Oh
There
yeah,
we
I could
go.
have done that too, but
Now it's the old man font, so I can read it.
yeah. So
All
I
right, so this week's comment is brought to us by once again Sir Solna. Really appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for
mhm,
putting a comment out there on our YouTube video from our last podcast,
yeah, much love.
episode 20. Appreciate it. He states, gaming started very small and the way people spend time together had changed. But call me old school, hanging out playing Cards Against Humanity is still a blast, and I still enjoy Smash Brothers as a fun party game. But many times it's hard to game like we did during LAN parties. LOL, thank you both for the shout out as well. Appreciate you, Sir Solma. Appreciate your feedback. You've been vital, key to helping us kind of grow and learn and helping me tremendously personally. So
Mm,
appreciate your feedback, man. Thanks.
yep. Um, you could have done better on reading that comment personally. I think. Get out of here, taking my job. Yeah, no, we really appreciate that, Sir Sona. It's great. If you guys want to check him out, you can check him out on Twitch. I don't have his schedule in front of me, but Matt could probably be the best source of reference for that schedule. You can reach out to us on our Discord, and that way you can talk to us on there. And you can also see us on other social medias as well, as you guys all know by now, with the hashtag #DisToDigital. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where we have discussions almost all the time about gaming. Also, the other thing I want to mention on this save point as well is Matt's going to be starting to make more content, making more videos. He was talking to me about that today. I am going to be trying to make a video right now on Bloodborne, and the reason I say try to is because it is trying my patience. It is. I played it, and when I play it, it is something that is not beautiful to see. So maybe after I've gotten a little further, I'll start it back up, and play it again for you guys so you guys can experience it. But as of right now, no, it's not happening. So if you guys have any suggestions or any comments about how I can beat Bloodborne or how I can cheese it, just let me know. Leave a comment in the video. I'm trying my best, but hopefully we'll get that beaten by the end of the month here. The other thing that I want to talk about at the end of the month, if you guys want to get your humble choice by the end of the month, there is a great deal going on right now where you guys can save money on the latest games at a great price and also give to a great cause. With Holt International Adoption Agency as our partner, we at Humble Bundle also, or them at Humble Bundle, we at Dis Digital been working a long time with them. We've been working with them for a couple months now, and it's great. The feedback that we get from you guys using that subscription, it helps pay for the Podbean subscription. So all the little proceeds we get from that really helps. And then the rest of it just goes all to charity and the developer as well. We take a very small portion of it, but that little small portion does pay the little bills that we do have, and we appreciate it for the number of subscribers that we got for that program. It's a great thing, and the games are great. Honestly, I I love it. I do like the fact that with Humble Bundle, like the games come in like every single month, but the one downside is I look at the games and it's always the next month that I see. So I get too excited and I like go to click and it's like that's next month's game set and I'm like, "Ah, oh, of course." So I always get a little too eager. Don't
And you
don't be
gotta
like
wait.
me. Yeah, don't be like me. Matt reaps the benefits regardless cuz he gets access to my Steam account. So gets to mooch off me a little bit, but that's fine. We got to save some money here at Dista Digital. The other than that, Matt, is there any other announcements you have?
No, not really. Just to kind of speak to his comments so we don't, miss that here.
Oh yeah, true.
Cards
Sorry.
Against Humanity. Love playing that. Love playing that. We had like one of the most memorable rounds of that with my wife, using every single dirty card you could possibly throw out there for a dirty joke night. It was pretty hilarious. And yeah, you really can't beat LAN parties back in the day. You really can't replicate it nowadays for sure.
Mm.
I mean, the only thing comes close, I guess, is if you have a squad of buddies who are all strategically playing something where you can actually legit communicate and have like the best experience, the most fun on a bigger platform. Maybe comes a little bit close, but yeah, you can't beat that. And Smash Brothers, actually, have been playing it through the years, and Brett was kind enough to give me a copy so I could get on with the guys and play, and it's a blast too. So
Yeah.
appreciate your comment, appreciate your feedback, man. Thanks.
Yes, we do appreciate it. And yes, I'm terribly sorry about that. I got a lot on my mind today with Matt taking my job of reading comments. It's thrown me off a little bit here. Sorry, guys. But no, I agree that, LAN parties, I think personally for like Call of Duty, CSGO, LAN parties is the ultimate way to play. The connection's beautiful, and that is, you can't experience that and then go play online and not be a little disgusted. LAN parties are the best. Halo split screen, come on, people, that was like the best thing ever. So yeah, I do 100% agree that it's nothing competes to a LAN party. Smash, on the other hand, Smash is a garbage game. I never win. I always lose. And when I invite people over, they always whip my butt. It's like the worst thing ever. And no matter how many guys I buy, how many freaking fighter passes I buy, it's just an excuse to come over and whip my butt and eat my Doritos and milk me for my beer. That's all Smash Brothers has become over the years, is my friends coming over, whooping my butt in Smash, and then eating me out of house and home. Like, yeah, it's a great game, but I've come to terms with the fact that maybe we should move on to a different game, something that I can win at occasionally.
Now, for the record, I've only ever experienced Smash with you over the internet, so
Yeah.
let's be clear about that. I'm not in that mooching.
No, he's not.
eating
He's not one of them.
party.
Not yet, anyways. He might.
yet.
He's got to put in some hours, and he might beat me. That's the only reason I got it from Matt, was because I could then whoop on Matt.
Yeah, make me the tackling dummy, right?
Oh yeah, it made me feel good. It made me feel great. Nah.
Build your confidence.
No, it didn't build my confidence at all. I felt really bad about it. Not gonna lie.
It was that level you made, man. That level was horrible.
Oh yes,
Bouncing to your death repeatedly. That was horrible, but I had a blast though.
Yeah, it's called the death box. There's only like one way to get out of it. So like if you're at 99 smash or 99%, like you just keep on bouncing infinitely off the walls until like you spontaneously hit the sweet point and you just go flying off. Yeah. Smash is a great game. I love it, like in reality. But it is a game that has cost me a lot. I think Smash has cost me the most money out of any other video game. I mean, and I've bought like hundreds of dollars worth of CS:GO boxes, but I've come out ahead with the skins and stuff like that. But Smash, that weekly, having the guys over, that has cost me, that's cost me quite a bit over the years. So I'm saying Smash is probably the most expensive game I've spent my money on. And with that, like, kind of concludes our save point and takes us into our last topic here, closing thoughts on Horizon Zero Dawn. We talked greatly about like the combat and the story and the structure of the game, but now we can now we can just kind of fanboy over it, and I can share with you my favorite part of the game, because now we have reached spoiler territory, because my favorite part of the game is literally the last 30 seconds of the game. Very similar to Nier Automata. But I want to hear your favorite moment first, though.
Oh man, no, you got to lead with that, dude.
No, 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 no. Okay, this is really sappy,
I'm just
actually.
kidding. I'm gonna
Okay,
go. Just chill.
okay, good. I'm kind of embarrassed to
thought
share
I'd
my favorite moment.
I thought I'd have a little bit of fun here, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you mine, and this is perfect because we haven't planned this, and this is gonna contrast the beginning and the end.
Okay.
Okay, so the beginning, to me, the most memorable moment for me that I was like, wow, is the emotional grip of when Aloy is a little girl
Hmm.
and they're going through the opening tutorial of how to play the game,
Yeah.
and the cutscene that transitions you from being Aloy the girl into Aloy the woman, where you're hunting and you're learning and growing, and Rost has got your back, and you have this moment where you're running through and you're the little girl, and then you like jump a ravine, and
Hmm.
you're basically training as a little girl, and that emotional cutscene, she jumps the ravine and she's trying to grasp, and then you see her disappear, like through it's a camera change, and then she lands, but when she lands and turns back, she's grown.
Hmm.
So that transition from jumping as a little girl and then making the jump and then landing on the other side as a woman, and you're fully, like, you can see right off the bat she's fully capable, can handle herself, she's just like a tough warrior,
Hmm.
and it's just, it's an emotional cutscene because you grow as her through the growing pains of being treated like crap by the tribal children
Hmm.
just previous to that, and they throw a rock at you, and you can, cool part is you can like catch it, and then you can decide. Then that's one thing I think we forgot to touch on, was the character choice and dialogue as
Hmm.
well. There was different dialogue options you could choose. You could choose the love reaction and just let it go. You could throw it back at him and hit him in the head, or you can throw it back at him and knock the rock out of his hand and kind of stand up to the bully.
Hmm.
And so that emotional journey of growing from a young girl to a woman, and like the transition screen when she turns back and looks and smirks, and then she keeps going, and it's culminated with a final scene right before you start take over as the mature Aloy, is you're running through and she's training and she's just firing arrows at these watcher machines, and she's just knocking them down, and she slides and turns and hits one from underneath in slow motion. That was like one of the coolest
Yep.
scenes I think I've seen in video games in quite some time. And so she turns back and looks at Rost, who's just like, he's got that father pride look in his face, and almost like you could see a tear, but there wasn't. But he's just so like brimming with pride at her, and there's that moment where he's fully kind of realized she's ready.
Hmm.
Everything I've done is paid off. She's ready to go. It's almost like it's his daughter, even though it's not. And so that, to me, that memorable cutscene, kind of, honestly, that's what hooked me into the game and made me want to play it all the way to the end. So
Yeah. And that particular scene, the reason when she slides, that's the reason why I slide underneath some things all the time. Is just because that cutscene. It is really touching, and it's a really iconic scene for the game because, like you said, you instantly get to understand who you are. You get to understand that you are confident, you are independent, and the world is for you to explore. And you have the tools capable of doing that. One of the things I thought was also kind of interesting was that Aloy doesn't have a romance option in the game. And the reason I like that is because it shows she hasn't got time for this. She don't have time for that. She's here to save the world. She's here to figure out who she is. She don't got time for lovey-dovey. And I like that a lot. Because she's like, there's even a comment in the game. She's like, does everyone have to flirt with me? Like in the game, and
mm-hmm.
and the king. She's like, does everyone have to flirt with me at the worst times? Like, and I like that a lot. And I think, yeah, mature Aloy is fantastic because it is a character that is strong, independent, and pretty much at the end of the day, she's like, we don't got time for this. We gotta save the world, sort of thing. And I like that transition the uh, from the optimism and from the potential, and then you get to see it full force with that one transition. Great camera work on that scene. My favorite moment in the game is in the last closing cutscene though. So yet again, spoiler alerts if you haven't played the game. So Aloy is a clone of Elizabeth Sobek, and so Sobek is the one who saved everyone with the Zero Dawn project, which pretty much said they trap people inside of the. Have you ever seen the show 100?
Briefly, yeah.
Okay, so it's very similar, like we hide ourselves as people, we let the world do its thing, and then we come up and we rise from the ashes, but bum,
Hmm.
sort of thing. Um, and so Elizabeth Sobek, in order to save the Apollo, which is like this knowledge vault, and there's all these engineers and people in there. There's a gasket that has to be sealed, and it's only supposed to seal to like a certain spec, and it wasn't doing it right. So she goes out and she fixes it, and she pretty much says like goodbye guys, like like continue on, do your thing, and she goes home. She goes back to her parents' house where she grew up, or her actual house. I'm not quite sure. Um, and that's where she ends up dying. Uh, and then all those people get screwed over by freaking Pharaoh, anyways, because he kills them all. But moot
Hmm.
point. He's a great character, by the way. Ted Pharaoh,
Hmm.
ultimate bad guy. Love him. But anyways, the part that made me like tear, I legit teared up at this part, Matt, was Aloy finds her, sees her, and turns on her focus to see that it's Elizabeth Sobek, and it's an audio log playing, and it's from Gaia talking to Elizabeth Sobek, trying to figure out like how to feel, because it's one thing to just be an AI and know stuff, but to feel for humanity and feel what's right was the thing that Elizabeth was trying to teach Gaia. And she says, "You don't have any children, but what would you want, if you did have a child?" And she said, "Well, I would hope that my child would be curious." And Aloy right then and there starts to like get emotional because she is Elizabeth Sobek, but at the same time she is Elizabeth Sobek's like child, that is her mother. And that is really what drove her to do this whole adventure was her curiosity, and she picked up the focus and discovered this impending doom on the world. And she was curious enough to continue on to find an answer and discover it. And that for me, it's full circle. It's that finding purpose. And it's the emotion that Aloy has when she has reached that point in her life where she discovers what her worth is. What was this all really for? Why am I this way? Who am I? Like all of that all tied into one simple line, and Aloy doesn't say anything. But the fact is that audio log, once again, going back to that audio log thing I was talking about, it just was delivered so well. And in the cinematography side of it too, it was just deliberately, it was brilliantly shot, and delivered a great message that I loved. I absolutely could not. I shed a single tear at that one moment. I'm like, oh, it's too good. It's too good. And that's why I really was excited to talk about this game, because that moment right there, just icing on the cake. I really get into it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good. That's a tough follow, man, for sure.
Yeah.
I also love the twist that it leaves it open.
Yep.
So someone who you thought was a good guy potentially is the one who set it off, and you kind of have this like he's survived out of this, and now you're gonna kind of find like your purpose going forward.
Hmm.
Not that they left it necessarily a cliffhanger, but they kind of left it open that okay, the world has not gone extinct now, but dun dun dun, there's something else on the horizon. So it's like, it leaves it open for you to kind of interpret. And immediately 3 years ago when I beat that game within the first, I think, week and a half, 2 weeks, I was just like, oh my god, I cannot wait
Hmm.
another few years for a sequel. Like, this is just too good. And I didn't want the game to end, honestly. It's one of those where the story traps you in and it makes you emotionally invested,
Yep.
and you go through all of this struggle, all these difficult enemies, and by the I haven't platinumed the game on PlayStation or anything for sure, but and I personally have not touched the DLC. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I touched the DLC on accident, and so I'm wandering, and there's this like snowy mountain thing, and I'm like, oh, like all this part of the map is discovered except for this one little part up here. Let me go discover it, and it's like hidden by the fog of war, so I have no idea what's up there. And then this giant saber tooth, like a super saber tooth almost, jumps me in this small little ravine area that has frozen ice, and that's where I learned and discovered that tethering was OP for me personally, because I just tethered it to like all the rocks and I just shot the crap out of it. Then it'd run at me, I'd craft it, and literally, because the thing was, I was level like 15 and the thing was like level 32 right off the gate. So I'm sitting there trying to like do anything to survive by like the skin of my teeth. And I kept wandering, and then you should really play it. It's actually pretty good. There's like another village there, and I don't want to go too into it because I don't want to spoil it for you. But then there's like
Appreciate
these
that.
dual twin bird things that attack the village, and I take out those things too. And after that, I'm like, I am deep into DLC territory. Because I could sense it once people started talking about stuff, and they kind of referred to things like, you know, like that haven't quite happened yet, sort of style. Like when a game
Yeah,
does that with
yeah,
DLC. So I'm like, oh, deep into DLC territory. Definitely, let's take a step back and come back when I'm not fighting a level 50 thing at level 20.
for sure.
Yeah, that was my experience with the DLC. Was I fought two bosses, beat two bosses out of the six, I think, and then hightailed it out of there and didn't go back because the main quest didn't take me that way. But it
Yeah,
was awesome.
I approached near that territory. Is that if I, help me jog my memory on this one? There's a territory up in the frozen tundra area where there is a machine that is like the size of a skyscraper almost, and it's like laying in the side of the mountain, frozen inside the mountain, but it's like part of it's sticking out, part of it's like embedded, and it's I think it's part of the main storyline if I remember correctly. And it's like this just enormous machine that you're like it's just in awe at how big
Mm.
this thing is and how far it reaches. And I was just so amazed by it that I was kind of intimidated, like, ooh, do I do this or
Yeah.
do I just okay, let's take a break from it. And then unfortunately what always happens in video game world, man, is we as gamers something new comes out and gets your attention
Yeah.
away from it, and then it's history, man. And it's just but now I'm definitely invigorated to go back through and platinum this game, and then kind of maybe we can do like an offshoot and just make some videos and then talk about the DLC for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely talk about the DLC. Uh, Give me a reason to go back and play it. The
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that really got me as far as grand scale thing, and that closing cutscene with Sirens, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you look at like the home base for where like Apollo was, you know that thing's a giant robot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a huge robot. It's just like a huge war machine looking robot thing with like it's like Doctor Octopus sort of thing. And when I saw that, I was just like, "Oh crap! I know what the first boss is in the second game now. Like that thing's gonna be so stupidly broken. It's gonna be so
Mm-hmm.
huge. It's gonna be bigger and badder than ever."
If I remember correctly, isn't it Hades?
Hades gets trapped inside the little thing, but then that
Okay.
when you go to visit Elizabeth Sobek's base, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you discover like what the project was, you go to like this abandoned place that was like destroyed, and
Okay.
she's like it's intact, and he's like yes, he's like that was the hold or whatever, the bridge or whatever, because it's like
Yeah, there's
reinforced.
the. I think I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That character is actually the one that actually originally in the lore of the game before the end of mankind. That's the machine that actually communicated the breakaway that the Pharaoh machines, the Pharaoh storm, I think it's called or whatever. They actually like
Oh
broke
yeah.
apart and became independent. And so this thing is one. It's kind of like the instigator of all of this. It just something happened and like turned it, and it just sent out this like worldwide message to hey, let's break off and self-preserve and destroy mankind and eat everything bio biomaterial and consume everything and
Mhm.
destroy the planet kind of deal. So I think I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That thing was very intimidating.
Yeah, it's crazy though to think about. Here's the other thing, like real world, like Ted Farrow is a horrible human being, but the reason he was able to do that was because he called them peacekeepers. But if you think about it, like I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat or nothing here, but like our drone program, and other assets that we're making, where we have like a lot of robotics going into the military. Eventually, you could see this happening. I think where like people are like, let's
Mhm.
fully automate something. Let's have something that can self-sustain, and then eventually you've gone down the rabbit hole of now you've doomed mankind, you know, and that's something where I mean I'm not too worried about it because I hope people have seen enough science fiction movies to not have to deal with that. But that's something where especially with like these like the military has these I forget what they're called mules I think it is, and they
Mhm.
literally walk and you can't push it over, like it'll get back up and continue to carry cargo and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, like that thing serves that one purpose. That thing is very similar to one of the robots in Horizon Zero Dawn. if you give it a mouth and it can eat me, then it is a monster from Horizon Zero Dawn, you know. So we're getting close, people. Let's not Ted Pharaoh this, you know. Uh, but at the same time, this is actually something I just discovered today. Water, California future, the like water for it, it is now a commodity, and you can exchange it on the Chicago Tax Exchange, or not tax exchange, stock exchange.
Wow.
So like we're already like having
Yeah.
like shortages of water, quote unquote, and stuff like that. And eventually, people are gonna start like, or they're gonna start like exchanging air, and they're gonna start like charging you for air and stuff like that. And as that gets crazier and crazier and crazier, like you start to see that it's not that crazy. It's a reality. That's a reality that this could happen. I don't think it will happen, but I mean, who thought that they would exchange water on the stock exchange? I mean, really, it's not so far fetched now. I don't know. I just tinfoil hat off.
No, I mean
Yeah.
it's a real world thing, because at the end of the day, in my field as well, you see a lot of people traveling to Texas from California, and the number one thing they're saying is they're coming and staking out where they're going to be moving to.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the climate out there, it doesn't rain.
Yep.
It goes for weeks and months without rainfall, and so like there's water shortage is a real thing, and it really affects a lot of people, and they're really scared. And I could count in 1 week, I probably had about 30 clients come through and discuss how they were moving from California, looking for a place to live, cheaper costs, things like that. And the big concern is the water drought for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a real world possibility. And the tinfoil hat thing is kind of funny because, it's something I take serious, because at the end of the day, like, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries as a kid, man. I'm pretty much under the belief that anything can happen. So, it's just weird things happen. You can't explain it. But I think rather than running out of water, you'd probably have a better chance at like the San Andreas fault line collapsing and California falling off into the ocean before you have like an extreme water drought where people are like killing each other over bottled water. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's like $8 or $9 a bottle of water now out there. So I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, you've seen Mad Max.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Mad Max. Oh, we could get all into that, man. That I think I would survive in the Mad Max world. I'm a little crazy. I'm crazy enough, I think that I would be able to survive. But I would definitely not make a podcast about it. I would definitely not make a podcast about how I, have like a concubine army for collecting water. I love that movie.
Yeah, like
still
kind of steal your image a little bit with your hair and everything, and the character from Cyberpunk. Hey. Just call you Samurai, and you're like sitting on top of this throne. These guys are like, and they're like, protect you to the death, and you got this like, I could picture you pulling out this huge like katana out of your back.
Yeah, and then I just sprinkle some water on them and be like, yeah, water, and then turn it off. Yeah, But that's besides. Yeah, see, I would have my feral robots. I'd have, a good supply of Ice Mountain water. Fuji water. Fuji's fine. Fuji's a little acidic. There's actually. Oh my gosh, we're getting off topic here. Fun fact: in high school, I had to do an acidity test for water, bottled water. It was, I kid you not, the most boring thing in the world. But I found out that Fuji is pretty acidic. And it can cause arthritis and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself at like 14, 15 years old, I'm like, when's this going to affect me? Oh, when I'm like 80? Yeah, that stuff's coming to me regardless, So I'm going to keep on drinking water from a bottle.
Is that the Fuji water, is that spring water, or is that like purified drinking water?
It's pure death, apparently, according to my science teacher.
I was going to say, because if it's purified drinking water, that's probably why it's high acidity.
Yeah, probably. I know one of the things that's really nice about, which is another reason you should move back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, we have, like Michigan, we have a pretty good freshwater supply. We have apparently a crap ton of snow. So we've got plenty of fresh water. So we're not really worrying about water over here in Wisconsin. If anything, we've got too much water in different forms than what we want. It's a little crazy. I'd rather have my water as a liquid than snow all the time. But I mean, like, honestly, like, if you think about it, like, yeah, it's crazy that's something what the world has come to, and that feral robots in the future are potentially a thing. It just blows my mind that it's a reality that we could possibly deal with. I don't think we're going to, but I mean, Who knows? Who knows what idiot designs up? Elon Musk. He's making automatic cars. Next thing you know, it's gonna be automatic Decepticons and Autobots are taking us out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I won't be
he's
sleeping
one who
tonight.
moved to he's one who moved to Texas too to kind of
Yeah.
not only save money, I guess, but just get out of the California lifestyle. But
Oh
hey,
yeah.
have you seen the trailer for the new Horizon Zero Dawn, the sequel?
No, I've not. I purposely
Okay.
avoid trailers because I don't like to hype myself up and then be disappointed. Star Wars, like prime example. But what about you? You
It's
watched it?
not. There's not. Yeah, so I've seen it a couple of times. There's not too much to take away from it. Maybe some new locales, some like maybe jungle biodome. It looks like they might be
Ooh,
trying to touch on some underwater segments as well, which would be kind of cool. Because think about that, like
Sharknado.
pr- oh, not Sharknado, but yeah, definitely like the inclusion of like sharks and other sea creatures and things like that would be pretty cool as well.
Yeah,
I'm looking for them to take it just to epic heights. I mean,
yeah,
it's a game that for a one-off. I mean, if you look at Guerrilla Games, they're responsible for the Killzone
yep,
franchise, which were fantastic first-person shooters for their time, and had so many forward-thinking ideas in their bag when they came to the table with these games. And so I think with their final one that was kind of a flop, it kind of opened the door to show us what an open world game from them might look like. And then all of a sudden they come out with this game that's just a one off at first, and then you're just it's amazing. And so I think they have a huge potential, a huge ceiling to climb, definitely as far as the sequel goes. But I think with what we've seen, I think it's gonna be like probably gonna steal the show.
yeah. I think here's the one thing I will say with the Killzone series, the engine that they use, especially in Killzone Shadowfall, even though it didn't have great reviews, like you said, the Decima or the Decima or whatever engine it is that they used for the Killzone franchise, for that particular game is used in Until Dawn. It's also used in Death Stranding. So these huge open world environments, and if you look at Death Stranding, it's hard to say that the game doesn't look beautiful, in game,
Mm-hmm.
relative to its size and scale. But I think they just know how to use that engine and max it out to the best. It's kind of like, DICE using their Battlefield engines all the time. Was it Frostbite engine or whatever it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I think once a developer gets really good with an engine such as that, like they they can really tweak it and make it seamless of an experience, and then have obviously great graphics behind it and gameplay as well. So hopefully they continue to use that engine for the next one, or they go on to something better. I mean, I think the engine has only had a handful of games on it, whereas if you look at something like, you know, the Valve's engine, the Source engine, I mean, there's so many games on that, but
Mm-hmm.
they're also super clunky. So I think
Yeah.
that's something I want to see. Is I want to see, once we have more than just a trailer, like, is this officially like? Oh, actually, it has been confirmed that that is going to be it, because Horizon Zero Dawn's not called Horizon Zero Dawn 2. It's like called the Forbidden West or something.
Yeah. It's Horizon Forbidden. I think it's Horizon Zero Dawn, but it's like, oh no, it's not Zero Dawn because Zero Dawn was about the end of the extinction. I think it's just called Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah. Okay. Let me look that up. I think so.
Pretty
I'm
sure.
not going to bother looking it up. But yes, that actually is the engine that's used for it. So I don't have to. None of my concerns are there, because they're going to use the same engine. I thought for instance that was the DLC that they added, but then that's something else
Mm.
frozen. It's like frozen, like whatever, not forbidden. They're both with F's. When you're skimming like I do, it gets confusing. Bear with
I
me.
mean, at the end of the day, I just want more Aloy. I just want more character building on top of that because now she's fully aware of her
Yep.
capabilities, and she really understands the world now. And I think the Forbidden West is that there's all these new things to yet to explore, and I think that her abilities have enhanced even more between the two games. And so I think they're definitely gonna probably honestly, I think it's probably gonna be a Game of the Year candidate whenever it does come
Yeah.
out. I'm hoping it's this year, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know when it's supposed to come out, but definitely 3 years in the shoot. I mean, with the assets they already had, I think that's not an unreasonable time to put out gold. They didn't 2 year it, or they didn't rush it like an Assassin's Creed game, which I like because they took time and care into it. But other than
Yeah,
just seeing
and I mean,
Aloy, was there anything else that you were looking forward to or you want to see in the game?
I think just overall, I mean, just expansion and progression of. I think I definitely want to see more story for sure.
Mhm.
I want more, not variety, but I want more context. I want more story. I wouldn't mind the game going back and like taking flashbacks to before the first game started.
Mhm.
Like maybe see some of that, um, like the humanity panicking, because there's the early cutscenes in the beginning of the game where it shows the lights turning off and humanity starting to fall, and like everyone's surrounded in darkness, and then there's this war. I wouldn't mind seeing flashback missions where you're kind of taking part in that humans versus machines kind of deal, and you're trying to the whole the United Nations and the military and the world armies are coming together to slow these things down, to buy time to build the ultimate weapon. And so Gaia being the ultimate weapon, actually just being a program to hack into these things, I think that would be really cool. Like, you know, you get to kind of see things from a different perspective before this all happened, and then maybe contrast to the stark reality of what it is, and that they're facing extinction again. And I think I want to definitely see more enemies, more and more creatures. I also kind of want to see the more of the human, like Mad Max type
Oh yeah.
factions. I want to see more of their personality. I want there to be like an ultimate bad guy, but this time is human, and he's like a jerk, and he's like stands in your way,
Mhm.
and there's more personality, because I feel like in this one the tribes weren't really intimidating. They were just weak sauce. They were just kind of like fodder in your
Mhm.
way to get around them, and so I think I would like to see more of like the encampments and more personality, where they're not just taking people prisoner, they're trying to survive too, like show their side of it as well, and have more personality in the bosses within those camps. And you know, maybe instead of killing them, maybe you give them an option to let them live and come and help
Mhm.
you, or maybe make that an outpost for humanity to try to survive instead of just trying to kill each other. So I think they definitely have this huge potential, you know, that they could go with the story. And I think if it's just more of that emotional grip that draws you into it, I think they would definitely benefit from that. And I don't know what they're shooting for, but I know personally they have the potential to be game of the year, whatever year it comes out for
Yeah.
sure with this one. And you know, I think they were pretty close with this one as it was. I think they were game of the year. They were like runner up, I think.
Mhm.
And so I do know that like out of the stumbling block, they had the PC port that was really poorly optimized at the beginning of its launch, and then you know, months down the road, it just became the go-to platform. And now I know that it's not a console exclusive anymore. It's also coming to PC
Oh, okay.
as well. It's the same time on launch. So I am kind of a little bit nervous about that, because I don't know what platform it's been designed for, if it's still PlayStation first or if it's just this hybrid now.
Mm.
But I think they're helping bridge the gap more, where you're seeing games that are made for consoles, made for PC, being able to be interchanged and played on both.
Mm.
And so kind of curious, and hopefully my one ask is that they do not add multiplayer into this game. If they add multiplayer into this game, they're going to take assets away from the story, gameplay, and it's going to ruin it for me, I think.
Now, here's the thing. What if they do a Last of Us Part 2 where multiplayer is not at launch, but eventually it's going to be there? Because that's what they did with Last of Us with the Firefly thing. With the
Mm-hmm.
So what about that? What if they release the game and then they make assets for multiplayer? How would you feel?
Absolutely. If the assets for multiplayer are separate and it doesn't take away from the game, I'd absolutely be open to play it, because like a co-op, at least I'd love to play
Yeah.
with you for sure.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, another prime example where it's like they didn't originally have that multiplayer. You can't go in saying we're gonna have multiplayer, in my personal opinion. Like if you add it as an afterthought, it's pretty good. Uh
Yeah, I just mean in general, if
oh
they
yeah.
put it on launch, then it's taking assets away from the story because of the capability of the new consoles and the PC. It's going to take assets away. Assassin's Creed ruined its franchise in the middle of the series that way by doing that, and so I don't want them to follow suit. But after the fact, like Uncharted, Last of Us, and everybody else, once they start to build and they put their game out there, sorry, my allergies are kicking my butt right now. I
Oh
don't know
no.
what's going on.
Picking too many
But
herbs up in
yeah,
Horizon.
I've been sneaking too many herbs now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just if they just put it on and tack it on after the fact, and they grow it from there, I think it'd be really cool to be able to use those traps in multiplayer and just do all these really creative things. But if I feel like if they're gonna do multiplayer, they should offer co-op, because I think this is a game like Tomb Raider you and I would play for hours on end together, where there was survival mode. I would love to play that in this universe with you. Just be able to play with a partner and just be able to have fun with it that way.
Exactly.
So I think co-op focus for me would be more fun.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. No competitive multiplayer. There doesn't need to be competitive multiplayer. For me, the one thing I really want to see, like you said, enemy variety. I want to see a gorilla monster. I want to see a gorilla mech monster, like a giant King Kong. I want to
Oh
see a
god.
shark, like amphibian shark sort of thing. I then want to see a triceratops of some sort, and then an actual T-Rex sized T-Rex. That's all my demands. Those are my 4 demands that I want. You know, you could do whatever you want. You could give me the same exact game, but that gorilla, I want something that's gonna rip my arms off.
And beat you with
Yeah,
it.
exactly. You're. How do they not have a single, like the jungle, for instance? You gotta have some sort of monkey, some sort of a snake. Oh my gosh, imagine a snake sort of thing. Oh my gosh.
That'd be cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're gonna give us something stupid though, like a toucan, like another toucan bird thing, and then I'm gonna be like,
Smack the beak
oh
off
yeah, I'm
it.
gonna be
Yeah,
like,
no.
oh whatever. That's one thing I want. Like I said, the ability to swap bow sets. So like if I have a bow, if I have multiple bows, I can like equip them with different sets of like enchantments or whatever, not enchantments, of resources and stuff like that and mods. So that way I can have
Yeah.
like a flame bow, an ice bow, stuff like that, or not an ice bow, an electric bow. That'd be cool. And then yeah, that's pretty much all my demands. Other than that, just continue doing what they're doing, and I think that's a good way to continue on the franchise strong. Um, and then keep Aloy the same. Don't don't give me a romance option in the second
Yeah,
game.
no.
I think you gotta keep Aloy independent, strong, because that's who she is. You know, I mean, if she has like a family and kids, and they like somehow die, oh my gosh, I couldn't even think about that. But then revenge quest, like
Yeah.
sort of like Last of Us Part Two. I mean, you got to think about how they're gonna be able to tie in the story. But I'm thinking that if you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You just need to, you know, attach an axle to it and give yourself another wheel, and eventually you have a
Yeah.
car that sustains itself,
Yeah.
like Assassin's Creed.
Building on the platform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last question before we close out here, because we're running long. We got really excited about the last part. We just had the juices flowing, guys. What is the one creature you want to see made,
Creature.
like a robot made?
I'm liking your Kong idea. Can I steal that?
Oh no!
Is it too late?
I guess.
Oh man.
Try thinking of a different one if you can.
Let's go away from dinosaur and let's go with like an I guess something formidable. I don't know, man. That's like you gotta
The Donkey or the
that's-
King Kong one you like a lot.
I like the Kong, man.
Alright.
But no, like so if I had to pick something from the sea, I guess I would want to see
No
like
pun
a
intended.
kraken. Like yeah, no pun intended. I would want to see like a kraken type creature. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Like come up out of the water and just devastate whatever's in its path.
Dude, imagine like a missile attached dolphin. Like dolphins with missile launchers, dude. Dude, they should just hire me on to come up with these ideas. Now that I've said this, you could have a killer whale battle where like you have to go onto its back, and like stab its blowhole. That'd be a huge fight. It'd be like Pinocchio. But the dolphins with missile launchers, that's something you can't. It only shoots when it comes out of the water, so it's like and it goes back under the water, and it's like javelin missiles.
Pretty sure they're gonna come up with some crazy stuff, man. For sure.
Yeah, guys, if anyone knows anybody on the Horizon Zero Dawn staff or Horizon staff, just hit me up. I got plenty of ideas for these weird creatures, but I don't want to give them all away on this podcast because if I did, they would never reach out to me and then pay me for my ideas. So with that being said, guys, I think it's time that we close up this episode before I give away all my intellectual property to the unknown world of the internet. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today for today's episode of Dis to Digital. If you have any questions on the topic or if you want to have a topic that we discuss on the podcast, show us some love. Leave us a like. Leave us a comment on the video. And you can also reach out to us on Twitter with the hashtag Dis to Digital.
And guys, don't forget, you can reach out to us on our Discord, Facebook page where we talk about the things you love, and share some of our greatest gaming experiences. And man, this has been a blast.
Yeah, it has.
This has been a lot of fun.
At the very end there, there's so many ideas coming out, and that's one of the great things about this podcast with you, Matt. Thanks for being on here again. Is being kind of like, not terribly scripted. Like sometimes just we get on a tangent, we keep going, and sometimes you get an episode like this where you guys get a free almost 20 minutes of us. You didn't even have to pay us. You didn't have to buy our Patreon or nothing for it. But yeah, feel free to stop on by at our social medias or on our website. But anyways, from all of us here at Distant Digital, I'm Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
See you.
Take care.